Wonderful. Thank you very much, John. And I shall just share my slides, and we will get going. First of all, before I introduce myself, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this today, and it's wonderful. And I'll be completely honest with you. Today's fallen on a really, really busy day for me. And I thought, no, that's fine, because I'm always happy to help at events like this, always happy to. And I thought, that's fine, because I'm on midday. I can listen a bit before. I came in because I like to do the hello to begin with. I had every intention of logging off and saying, right, I need to get on with some work. It's been gripping. I haven't been able to leave my screen. It's been really, really informative. So I hope that everybody has found it as informative, inspirational, and let's say enjoyable as I have. And the combination of those three are very rare things to find. So we canter on, because I am conscious of time. So as John said, my name is Claire, and I'm the director of Curve Strategic. And you don't want to know about that. We want to know about this, okay? And what I'm going to be talking on is the focus on trauma-informed leadership and compassionate practice. Now, we have talked a lot about compassionate practice. It's come through. I was thrilled to see that come through. Now, what I'm doing is taking us a step back to the trauma-informed leadership. It's very well for us to be talking about the importance of compassion, the importance of well-being, but we need to go back to say, why is it that as we go through 2025, we are seeing higher levels of stress-related absences than ever before? I was talking to colleagues at the beginning of this session to say that I was reading yesterday a new review published by Sir Charlie Mayfield. You don't need to know that name. Charlie Mayfield was the former chairman of John Lewis. And talk about good publicity rings, that the fact that they actually launched it at the same time that the John Lewis advert was coming out, so everybody's happy to get him on board to talk about it. I said to John, I'm a bit grumpy actually that the Institute didn't get the money to do the review, because actually we've all been saying this for some years, but it's great that the review came in, and it's called Keep Britain Working. And it's highlighting things that we've known forever, but it's great that this is coming out now in the public forum about the reason that people are absent is because of mental health issues, because of stress-related issues. And that goes back to trauma-induced, and trauma can be seen in its broadest sense. So what trauma-informed leadership is, as we aspire and grow to be leaders, is we need to recognise the impact of trauma and how trauma is personalised to each and every individual. Something that may not make you anxious might make somebody else very, very anxious. The best example of that is I make my living by talking. As I said, I got invited to do this. I'm giddy. I don't need to. John knows, Jade knows, Charlotte knows. I don't need to be asked twice to do things like this. I love it. How about all the people that say the worst possible thing that could happen to them is public speaking? I mean, it is that funny thing that there's a higher percentage of people that are frightened of public speaking than they are dying, which is bizarre, because that means more people at a funeral would rather be in the box than the person doing the eulogy. You know, makes no sense at all. I love speaking publicly. I love sharing. But a lot of people find it really intimidating. Again, they would find that traumatic. If I was a leader running a meeting and I thought, I'm going to be inclusive, I'm going to get everyone around the Zoom or everyone around the table to say something, people around that table, your team, might be dreading that moment. That could be traumatic to them. You need to be sensitive to that. That's a very light touch approach, and we equally need to be aware of other traumatic things that may be going on in their lives. We have heard heartfelt stories today about individuals that have coped. Ingrid, who has come and she's managed a number of scenarios and then gone into work or done her studies. Everybody has their own stuff going on. We need to be sympathetic to that. We need to understand potential paths to support people through recovery, through coming back through that. Not only, Dudley mentioned this morning about how awful it is when somebody, dies in our workplace, and the impact on that is if it's somebody that we're caring for. But also we've had colleagues that die. We have members of our families. Stuff happens. We need to support people through that. I was involved with supporting an organisation once. It was dreadful. There was a stabbing incident in one of the residential homes that I was actually supporting at the time, and one of the residents actually stabbed and killed the other resident. Imagine what it was like on a number of levels. That was not only traumatic for everybody that was involved in the time, but then the coroner's report afterwards, the publicity, the press, and having to manage with the fact that somebody who they cared for dearly on every level had died. The CEO there had to we worked through and supported to understand those pathways to recovery, and they are even stronger organisation now. We need to create an environment that promotes psychologically safe, trusting, empowering environments where those colleagues can say, actually, I'm struggling here. I really need some support here. Because sometimes we can just jump in with being compassionate before we get to the point of thinking, well, actually, what's the most effective way for us to be compassionate? Okay, so trauma-informed leadership draws from the principles of trauma-informed care, and you apply those to leadership. Many of us are very good at doing that from the caring side. We've got to take those skills with us and take them into leadership. And as we spoke to, Kenny was just talking just now about the importance of the culture of the organisation. We need to take that into the whole organisational culture. Okay, we need to, how we do that, the principles are we need to create an environment that's safe. There's trust. There's choice, collaboration, empowerment, and a respect for diversity. We know, and I'm going to refer to a book that we're big fans of the Institute, and it's referred to as one of the reading books in the high performance leadership module that Dudley was referring to earlier, the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. And one of the areas that is referred to, within there is the fact of actually we have to sometimes disagree and commit. We're not always going to commit to something that we agree with to begin with, but we've got to listen and think, actually, I don't quite agree with you, but actually, I get it. So, okay, let's do this bit before we go on to the next bit. Sometimes you've got to agree, actually, you're coming from a different perspective to me. You've got to disagree and commit. And then when we're at that point, we can introduce the compassionate leadership, the compassion that you all came through unanimously. That was the leading principle that you said about leadership that came through. Looking at the algorithms that came through, everybody must have alluded in some way to compassion. And this is, we've got to empathise with our colleagues. And the only way that we can empathise with our colleagues is to listen to them. And we go into conversations seeking to understand rather than we go in to be understood. Rather than taking all your time when you're preparing in the morning, going, oh, I've got to deliver this, we're going to have to do this, we're going to have to make cuts, or we've got to introduce this, or we've got to bring somebody in, or this is happening. How's the best way to tell people? I'll tell you the best way to tell people, very softly, and then listen to them, understand where people are coming from, and then commit as leaders to supporting others to cope with, and then to successfully work through those challenges and enable those to lead, to be effective and thrive in their work. Step back, provide the scaffolding, and then we step back within that inclusive, psychologically safe environment. Because as leaders, the one thing we've got to realise, and this is something that I learned as I came into leadership because I thought, well, I'm passionate, I'm driven, I'm doing it. And one of the things is actually people who say, yeah, that's very good, but look behind you, Claire. Nobody's with you. They can't keep up with you. The things that you're saying, yeah, you feel happy with them, whereas you've got to provide an environment where people go, hold on, you're working too quickly. I remember once, because I am an early bird worker, it's just the way that I work. It's nothing about, if you want to catch me, I'm better off at 4 o'clock in the morning than I am 9 o'clock at night. I'm very much a lark rather than an owl. Okay? It's not because I want to be superhuman. It's just I don't sleep very well in the early morning. When I wake up, I have to get up. Whereas, like I say, after 9 o'clock, done. I made the mistake once as when I was a new CEO and I was sending out emails because that's when I did my admin, because I wanted to get all my admin done so I could go in and be a hands-on presence. And one of the managers, fortunately, I created an environment where they go, is there an expectation that we're picking up emails at 4 o'clock in the morning now? If being a leader does that, and it was atrocious role modeling for me, because I was indicating that, if you want to be really, really the top person here, expect to be on your emails. And that wasn't what I was doing. I was just mopping up my email. But fortunately, I created an environment where they were able to ask me that, and I was able to say, no, not at all. Now, it's interesting that Jacinda Ardern, who we really got to know, who's the ex-Prime Minister of New Zealand, we came to know and love during the pandemic, whereas she has received concrete criticism. One of the criticisms I've faced over the years is that I'm not aggressive enough or assertive enough, or maybe somehow because I'm empathetic, it means I'm weak. Fortunately for New Zealand during the pandemic, and for us as having an inspirational role model, she totally rebelled against that. She refused to believe that you cannot be compassionate and strong. Just because you are compassionate, it doesn't mean that you're not strong. Absolutely, you can be driven, focused, assertive, but you can do that in a nurturing, compassionate way. It extends from the fact that you get to know what's going on inside the team you're leading. Nate Rager said, when leaders get honest about what's going on inside, they experience higher levels of engagement, support, and teamwork. Because here's the link, gang, and this has been scientifically proved. Those of you that know me before, that my PhD is in neurology, and it's links between emotional intelligence and cognitive intelligence. So the science really, really reinforces it. I've been passionately working in neurology for the last 30 years now. Well-being is the foundation. When employees feel well, they are delivering their best selves to work. Well-being fuels engagement. People feel connected, motivated, and committed. Engagement is the spark. When employees feel engaged, it drives performance. Performance is the outcome. You can't just get to performance. You can't say, we're underperforming, we need to focus on this. You can't just suddenly say, right, off you go then, everyone be engaged. Well-being is the foundation. It has got to be. Interesting. This gentleman here, you may recognise him, you may or not. Steve Jobs. He's a great example of somebody that nurtured compassionate leadership, but in a very assertive, strong way. Okay, and he, in complete opposition to Jacinda Ardern, got criticised for actually being too harsh in the workplace. He rebelled back and said, no, you can be strong, you can be assertive, but do it with compassion, because I create an environment where people have a high level of well-being so they can be inspired, motivated, engaged. And he said, do you know what? I get the very best brains in Silicon Valley working around here. They could go and walk into any job for a huge salary. They don't go. My retention rates are high. They stay and they work with us. If I was an awful leader, they wouldn't do that. He speaks the truth. Okay, so what we need to be thinking about, and I'm cantering through this because I want to bring us back on time schedule to move forward, because we've got lots to listen to as we go through the day, is what you need to be thinking about is how can you prioritize engagement and motivation in the organizations where you work. Think of examples that have worked for you. How can you engage people to begin with? we listen to them, we find out what their interests and passions are. So you can turn around and say, oh, I know, how did you get on? I know you were going to, how are you getting on with that scarf you're knitting, or the initiative that whatever you may be thinking of. Some people like running, if their interest or passion, some people like reading, whatever it is, just you can drop it in, you can say, and people think, oh, actually, this person's nice. And also you can turn around then and say simple little things like, I know you like this particular chocolate bar. I found out this morning, again from John, that there are square crumpets. I'd never heard of such a thing. I shall make a mental note if ever it comes a time that we go on a institute camping trip and I'm tasked with putting things in the Red Cross box, I shall bring some square crumpets. Charlotte's also informed me that there's Christmas tree ones coming out. Who knew? It's a whole new world out there, gang. But it's finding out about interests and passions. And then we can link in, and it's those silly little things like saying, oh, mention that I saw some of this, I got some for you. It makes people feel loved and nurtured. And then that means we can nurture and support growth and create this nurturing, psychologically safe environment. And then in the last couple of moments, I'm going to say, don't just think it's about giving to everybody else. We've heard some wonderful tales. I loved Ingrid's phrase about, I carried up the mountain. So Ingrid now is a very selfless, empathetic human being, is saying, I'm going to bring people up as well. We heard from Dudley and Kenny exactly the same about, don't make the mistake of when you become a leader to not identify your interests and passions. Because again, going back to Dudley's last, one of his last but one slides, putting the oxygen masks on, make sure you take time for your interests and passions. I heard a story, I was talking to somebody and they ended up in A&E with such severe nosebleeds because they got so stressed at work. They weren't looking after their interests and passions. Give permission to dedicate time to be compassionate. And then finally, Polonius in Hamlet, to thine own self be true. Be your own leader. You know what makes you a good leader. You know if you've been a bit harsh. You know if you haven't listened properly. You know if you have not role modeled good work-life balance. You know if you've not spent enough time practicing what you preach. To thine own self be true. And because we are get so caught up, we can go through our daily activities with brief efficiencies. I'm really sorry I haven't got time to do that. I haven't even had a chance to look at my emails yet. I haven't had a chance. Or we can actually take time to value human connection. We need to make time to humanize the workplace. And coincidentally, because there is such a golden thread going through here, I'm going to finish on the last slide that Dudley finished with. I've learned what people will forget what we said, people forget what we did, but people will never forget how we made them feel. Maya Angelou, that is a constant throughout this. Remember how people made you feel, what worked for you and what didn't work for you, what turned you off and what turned you on. And that's the kind of leader that you want to be. Thank you very much. I apologise a bit for the gallop through, but in a way, that's what we want to do. We want to feel energised and moved on and get back on track with the, with the programme. If anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to take them now, or if not, put them in the chat or whatever's easiest for the programme. Over to you, Chair. Have we got time for questions?
Well, we've got very quickly, Ingrid has got her hand up, so I'm going to go to her very quickly. Thank you. And then Anne Morgan is standing by in Jersey. Can't wait for Anne to come online. But Ingrid, go ahead with your question. Thank you.
Claire, I was blown away. I was riveted to everything you said, and you got lots of hearts from me. And if I could take you and bottle you for my team and my people, the people who live with us and the people who serve our purpose, I would do that, because everything you said resonated. And I would like to urge the young people here as well to find another Maya Angelou poem called And Still I Rise, and you will see that it is all within you You just need to grasp it. Get yourself a vision board, young people, and put your vision out there and be daring and bold. And don't forget about the love. Claire, I loved what you said. Amazing, amazing. I'm going to find you and follow you now.
Do. Wonderful. Thank you.
Making some connections and some friendships and some contacts. That's lovely. This is what it's all about. Thank you so much, Claire. Let's give Claire the now officially from this morning traditional send-off.